Okay.
Okay. Well, John, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll just say hello to everybody. Hi, I'm glad you signed on, and hope you didn't mind me bothering you on LinkedIn and sending out all those invites. And I'm at my home, and Tony's here, and Jean has been so nice to do this for us. So I hope everybody finds this informative. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, John. And I want to point out that we started this webinar series based on a survey that we did of O'Dwyer's readers back earlier this year, and the key topics that they're interested in terms of content, what's keeping them up at night, that kind of thing. And we will be doing another version of that survey soon in the coming weeks. So keep an eye open for that. And two of the topics that came out were leadership, and obviously the last couple of years, the challenging times that we're going through. So Jean Serra from V2 Communications has said that she would happy to be talking about these topics today. So Jean, I'm going to give you a moment to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, thank you, Tony and John. Thanks for inviting me. I am co-founder and CEO of V2 Communications. I have spent my entire career in communications, working on the agency side, primarily working with technology companies. And here at V2, our client portfolio is a mix of B2B tech, healthcare tech, and climate technology organizations. We're helping our clients with a wide range of communication services, everything from corporate communications, so focusing on crisis and issues management, to brand awareness, social media, content development.
Yeah, I think crisis communications is going to be a topic for 2023 as we move forward.
Great.
I want to remind everybody that if you have questions, please drop them in the chat, and we'll address them probably after we get through some of the major questions that we were asked by our audience. So on that note, Jean, you and I were speaking a week or so ago about leadership through challenging times, and you used the word evolving to describe the world businesses now operate in. And I thought that was a great perspective. It resonated with me, but could you dive into that a little bit further?
Sure. Well, I think challenging is a tough word, and I think we've all heard it a lot over the last couple of years. And I think, when I think about challenging times, they might be an issue or a crisis, and often it might be something damaging or negative. But I think that leadership is a lot more than just managing a crisis. I think leadership involves keeping your finger on the pulse of change in your department, on your team, in your organization, in your marketplace, in the world. And all of that, I think, helps leaders identify a shifting tone, a shifting conversation in the market. And that's really where we've been focusing over the last few years with our clients and even with our own business, making sure that we are attuned to what is evolving and changing, and navigating that both from a leadership perspective, but then also a communications perspective.
So what do you specifically tell clients about how they can lead during evolving times? I mean, I think about what constitutes a challenge with societal upheavals and client crises, business disasters. Is there a unique response for each one? So there's kind of two questions there. I could break them apart if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, well, so I do think that lots of different scenarios could constitute a challenge, an issue, a crisis, maybe something that is evolving that could require both leadership and communication from leadership. So, wide range of things to monitor and think about and be strategic about with your business or your organization. Absolutely, the response varies. And so, what we do with our clients as it relates to all of these outside and inside factors that could constitute an issue or a crisis or something evolving that requires communication is, if we're in planning mode, it's working with our clients to identify this wide range of scenarios and help them prioritize, what are most likely to occur and require a response, what might have the biggest impact on stakeholders. And from there, and sort of balancing those two vectors, start to prioritize where do we build action plans and key messages and communications. In terms of any of them in a response, whether it is planning mode or responding to something that's emerged, I do think it varies, and I think it really, with all of our clients, is highly customized and bespoke for that organization. And often what we are looking at are the circumstances of what's happening, but then putting that through the lens of the business and what we know of the business. What is the company's mission and vision? What are the core values? What are we doing as a response to whatever that might be? And I think based on all of that insight and data and conversation, we land at what is the right next step. And often that's us having a seat at the table, having a conversation around what is the decision the business is making, and then certainly a central role in how that is communicated to the key stakeholders.
So that's a great segue into the next question. Is when you think about a leader, what makes a leader in your experience? Every time you open up any media source, they're talking about this leader or that leader and what they're doing well, what they're doing poorly. So what makes a leader in your experience?
Yeah, so I feel so lucky. In my career, I've had an opportunity to work with so many different leaders, leadership styles. And when I think about really successful leaders, whether they have a high profile out in the marketplace or perhaps they don't, but they are a galvanizing force within their organization or within their industry, I think there's a couple of common factors. First, there's a real vision, a real passion for what the business organization is here to do. And the leader, really lives that, embodies it. Not only him or herself, but they do a great job of evangelizing it internally, externally, and in evangelizing it, really building a community of employees, investors, partners who are on board with that vision and want to be part of that ride. So they feel very committed to it, attached to it. So I think that's an important part of a strong leader. I also think that a strong leader not only has the vision, but is able to go a layer or two deeper and start to think about and organize an action plan so that that community that's coming together, that ecosystem that is working together and partnering to take that hill, they have a path forward, and that path forward is clearly communicated. It's something that the leader participates in helping to navigate, and I think that those are really important elements of a leader: the vision and the go forward plan.
Well, that's really interesting because I heard evangelizing and action plan and navigating. And so how do you communicate with your teams regularly, and how does that communication change during a challenge?
We've had a lot of discussions among our management team and our leadership team over the last couple of years around communication, because pre-COVID, we had the opportunity to all be together 5 days a week, and whether it was through organized meetings, we had weekly staff meetings pre-COVID, to just, water cooler conversations or stop by my office and let's have a chat. All of that was gone. So we had to sort of reimagine how were we going to communicate. And so, it's continued to evolve and change. What we found is that frequent communication is really important. Communication that is information rich is really critical. So, frequency may not matter as much as the quality of the content that we're sharing. So for example, with our staff during COVID, and now that we're hybrid, some back in the office, some working from home, some in other parts of the country, we're meeting once a month, but we're doing a lot of thoughtful planning around the content that we're going to be presenting once a month. And so we're making sure that we're talking about what's happening in the market. We're in technology. It's been in the headlines a lot over the last year. So, talking about our experiences as people who, the leadership team has been doing this for, 20 plus years. We've lived through ups and downs in tech. And so what are our observations about what's happening now? What's happening within our business among our clients? And what's happening with the teams and the work that teams and individuals are producing. So we're making sure that we go deep enough to give everybody a sense for where we are at as an organization, where our clients are at, and we're taking an opportunity to also celebrate everybody's achievements and knowledge share. So the teams have done some really creative, impressive work in different service lines over the course of the last 12 months. And so creating a forum where we can talk about that in a way where, a team who perhaps hasn't done, say, a sponsored content opportunity learns more about it, and now they have a great idea that they can bring to their client.
One of the things you said resonated with me based on research we've done and an earlier webinar where there was a lot of media saying young people particularly don't want to return to the office. And we were seeing exactly the opposite, because in the office, you can stop by the office of someone who has experience that you don't have, or stop by a C-suite executive and say, I've never done this before. Could you point me to somebody or a resource that can help me get through this? So
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons that the challenge came up as a big topic.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about communicating with your team, how do you communicate what you can and can't tell partners and customers? And there's a second part of that question, but I'm going to listen to this first.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I said, communication is really important. I think in the absence of communication, a lot of issues can emerge. I think the void is not a good thing to have, because sometimes it gets filled with inaccurate information. So I think the degree to which you can share information, even if that information isn't all figured out yet, but we're working on it, is really important. And to be clear about when there will be updates, I think is important. And that's something that kind of goes back to media training 101, which we've done with clients for decades. Answering with no comment isn't a great answer, but answering with, I don't have that information right now, but we can circle back, is a much better message to receive as the questioner.
So the second part of that was, what you can and can't tell, how do you lead a team through tough times, and what's the right level of transparency?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hinted at that, but
yeah. I think it depends on the issue, really. When COVID, for example, in the beginning of lockdown, I think that was a really unsettling time for some of us who had been in the working world for, a longer time. Many people sort of equated it to what it felt like right after 9/11, just so much uncertainty, a lot of fear, big things that were happening outside of the work world. But we were still at work, and we still had to work. And so, what we did was institute more regular communication with our teams to talk about how we were staying really close to what was happening in our clients' businesses, to the degree possible, shifting our programs to support how clients were shifting their marketing plans to communicate with their customers and prospects, keeping people informed about any clients who were departing, and also the new business that was coming in. So, we were in a position where I think a lot of our clients kind of hit pause for maybe a month or two, but pretty quickly, the new business pipeline was really back to where it had been. We weren't experiencing any issues with our business, fortunately, and I think sharing as much of that as we could, but also being empathetic to what other people were going through, what other organizations might be going through that were hit harder by COVID. I think that was really important too. So it became a bit of a balance in terms of, information about the business and our continued support for clients, and then being a sounding board and an empathetic listener to our employees, to our clients, to our partners around what all this means and how it's impacting people, not only professionally, but personally. And so, we had a lot more company all hands meetings where we gave updates, but then we also instituted a program where senior leaders were connecting with employees one-on-one to just sort of check in and talk about how things are going. And that was really enlightening and helped us learn what our employees needed in real time. And it gave us an opportunity to react to that and to support them in a better way.
It's really engaging to me that you chose the word empathetic. I actually read a whole book on that topic about how to be more empathetic, how to be a more empathetic listener.
I'd love that title.
Yeah, I'll send that over to you separately.
Okay, great.
So we talked a lot about communication, and that's great. But one of the key things in my mind is, what's the difference between communication and feedback, and how do you give feedback to clients and to team members? Or maybe that's two different feedback loops, but that's a key issue in my view.
Right. I think it might take, it might take two paths, but I think at the core, the way I think about feedback is the same. And one of the things that we like to talk about here at V2 when we're thinking about giving feedback internally or giving feedback to clients is, we don't want to PR it to death, right? Like, we're all really good communicators and we can put a spin on things such that the listener may be like, whoa, what happened? What did I just learn? And so we really believe in direct communication, but with kindness and with care. I think there is a way to deliver feedback, even if it isn't always super positive, in a way that is productive and respectful. And so that is what we strive for in all of our communications, internally and externally, is having the tough conversations, because often feedback can be tough, committing to being direct and clear about it, and also committing to being constructive. So I think it's really important, you often hear people say, don't bring me a problem, don't bring me a solution. And I think that it applies here, right? Like, you're giving feedback, not only provide the feedback, but provide some suggestions on how someone may approach a situation differently, or handle a meeting in a different way, or develop a press release with sort of a different mindset into how they go about that first draft. I think that is really critical to making feedback constructive.
You remind me, I see all the time people talking about, well, I asked my PR agency to get me on Good Morning America, or I asked my PR agency to get me in the Wall Street Journal, and having that conversation around, it may not be the right fit for you, you may not be the right fit for them.
Yep.
When they can turn around and say, well, somebody else promised me that.
Yep.
That's a difficult conversation to have. I want to encourage people to drop questions into the chat. I have a few already, but if you have things you want to make sure and ask Jean while we have her on the line, please do. So during COVID, as we're talking about inflation and recession going forward, how should leaders manage pushes to cut things, to cut staff, to cut budgets, to cut back? You touched on that earlier around pushing back, but what should a leader do in that scenario?
Well, I mean, I think, there are certain things a leader is going to have to do. I mean, if you are faced with significant financial issues as a result of inflation or, if it had been COVID, I think there are steps the business needs to take. And, as a leader myself, those are conversations that I would have with my CFO, my leadership team, and I think you balance what needs to be done with what is going to make the most sense for the business, depending on what your business is, and then communicate those changes in the best way possible. I think when there isn't, when there isn't something immediate that's happening, being upfront about the uncertainty of what we're living in and acknowledging it is really important. So I'm seeing a lot of that, or I have seen a lot of that this fall, with our clients. We've gone back to in-person meetings. There's been a lot of travel, a lot of activity. It's been fantastic. But at a lot of these conferences, it is a question about what's happening in the economy. Are we in a recession? Are we going to be in a recession? And I was really heartened to hear a lot of these leaders, many of whom are my clients' CEOs, acknowledge that, things are not what they were 12 months ago. That it is something that they are paying attention to and will be a diligent steward of the business moving forward, but also sharing that, there's optimism. Again, like I said earlier, we've lived through recessions before. And, depending on, what the client's market might be, I think that there's still an appetite for the products and services. It may be a more competitive environment. It may be a slower sales cycle. But there's still activity and business and still a need for what many of our clients are innovating in the market. And so there's something, to be excited about going into 2023.
I agree with what you're saying about optimism, because it's been interesting to me that I meet with clients and PR leaders and corporate communicators, and I keep hearing, we're so busy, we can't meet with you right now. We're having record earnings. We are reading about economic uncertainty and we're reading about a potential recession, but our business results right now are pretty good. So
Yeah.
optimism is a great word there. So I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to jump into some of the questions from the chat. You and I have talked about, you mentioned climate change as one of your focus areas.
Yeah.
What is it like working with certified B corporations and public benefit corporations working in that space? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, so we work with some B Corps, PBCs, and then separate from those, we also have a lot of purpose-driven organizations that we work with that may not be structured as a B Corp or a PBC at this point. I think what we approach a lot of our work with clients first and foremost from the standpoint of, what is the mission of the company? And some of our clients may have a very defined mission and vision. They've spent a lot of time thinking that through. Certainly the PBCs and the B Corps have that, and it's well articulated on their website, and it really, provides the foundation of a lot of their go-to-market strategies. And then for our work, the way that we're communicating what they're doing. But even for, some of the purpose-driven organizations that aren't PBCs or B Corps, it's giving us, from a communication standpoint, a great platform from which to talk about, depending on what the client does, their technology, their product, their service, and the broader impact that it's having. So, it isn't just about the sales, and it isn't just perhaps about an efficiency that it brings, but it is a piece of a journey to creating some kind of compounded change. And so I think that is, it's helpful for our team members to put our clients' business into a bigger global context and therefore elevate some of the conversations that they're having with influencers, with media, about where our clients play in a lot of the, big issues and trends that national, international, financial media are covering.
Well, I'm going to just read this because it's in the chat. It's just a great segue into this. How do you counsel clients about the importance of leadership in ESG and sustainability?
Yeah.
Because I know we're hearing about this all the time.
Yeah. So it's definitely a conversation we have with all of our clients. Some of our clients have very defined ESG or sustainability programs in place. Some may be, on the earlier stage of starting to develop them. Our role typically with clients around ESG and sustainability is helping to communicate what their position and their strategy and their programs are to key stakeholders. In the absence of having that formal program in place, which many organizations are at that stage, we're helping our clients look at what is happening in pockets of their organization that they may not even be aware of at this point, and start to sort of put some connective tissue around those projects or programs, and help them articulate that as a broader ESG or sustainability narrative. And so, we're often coming to our clients sharing the trending conversations that we're seeing in their key influencer communities, media outlets around ESG or sustainability topics, as opportunities for our clients to participate in those conversations. And in several cases, then helping our clients figure out what A is our position around that, our perspective on it, and then B, what are our proof points? What can we talk about that's happening within our business that supports our commitment to, whatever those initiatives might be?
So this is a question more around your role as a CEO. How do you lean on your leadership, your senior leadership, while weighing important decisions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so we sort of formalized our leadership team in the early spring, and in doing that, created more defined roles and responsibilities around service and client areas of the business and operations areas of the business, so that folks had a specific swim lane. And so I think, as it relates to certain facets of the business, I will consult with and work more directly with one or two of the leadership team members who are responsible for that. But generally, I look at our leadership team and I lean on my leadership team as my thought partners in not only managing the business, and by the business, I don't just mean clients. Employees are our most important audience at V2. And so making sure that not only are we delivering a great client experience, but we are delivering a great career development and professional development experience for our employees. So leaning on the leadership team to help manage the business, but then also think about growth areas for the business, for our employees with career paths and professional development, and for our clients with service offerings and capabilities that will keep pace with, this dynamic industry that we're in of communications.
So a question that came in on the chat, you talked a little bit about the pandemic and hybrid work and remote work. Can you talk about at V2 your biggest challenge and the biggest benefit that you've encountered with remote and hybrid work?
Yeah, sure. So biggest benefit has been employee engagement. I think we all enjoy the flexibility of being able to work from home and come into the office and you know, do what's right for all of us to support both our personal lives and our professional lives. Another great benefit of this model, which we adopted, I guess, fully a little over a year ago, was opening up V2 to a talent pool that was not just based in Boston or New York. And so we've been able to attract talent across the US, and that has been fantastic for the organization. So some really positive benefits. I think, you know, what we're wrestling with right now with remote and hybrid, which is sort of the way we talk about it, is making sure that when we do come together, that we are creating really meaningful in-person interactions. And so this has been a learning curve for me and now becoming a learning curve for our management team. You know, at first it was, let's just, you know, try to come into the office more or be mindful about when we're coming in and communicating that to others. So if they want to come in, I mean, the worst thing is when one person comes in and then you're the only person in the office, right? And you're on Zooms all day. But what we've found more than that is making sure that when we come into the office that we're creating really rich interactions with our teams. We had the luxury of not thinking about it pre-COVID, right? We were here 5 days a week. You organically just kind of overheard conversations that informed how you might approach a situation moving forward. Whether it was how a senior person handled a really tough conversation with a client or, you know, managed a press interview and inserted themselves, like all of that kind of just happened. And it happened a lot here at V2, and it's a really important part of our professional development, and I think a really unique aspect of our culture. And so now we have to be really thoughtful about how we create those opportunities, because you need to think almost 3 and 4 steps ahead. Okay, I'm going to come into the office these days. Let me invite these teams and let's plan to do these 3 things, because it will give us an opportunity to really all roll up our sleeves together and have an interaction that's more than just we're all sitting at our desks and going through the weekly meeting, but there's a real learning opportunity that's happening.
Well, I mentioned the O'Dwyer survey at the beginning. The feedback we got was people love content that's 30 to 40 minutes long. We're in that window now, so I'm going to give people one more chance to drop questions in the chat, and I'm going to ask the one that I have left. You talked about meaningful engagement in the office, engaging conversations rather. What steps have you taken to maintain culture?
Yeah.
When people aren't in the office every day?
Yep. Yeah. So we used to have two times a year when we would get together as a whole company. I mean, we were always all together because we were in the office, but you know, we would have kind of our agency overview, kind of think of it like a sales kickoff with folks, give them a bit of an overview on how we did in the last year and what our plan is moving forward. And then get together socially after, and then we'd usually have some kind of summer outing and a holiday party. And so all of those are still very important, but we are adding additional times for us all to get together, so we're augmenting those, and to the extent possible, inviting and supporting everybody in coming, whether it's into the office or into some location where we can all get together. And not only have fun and social activity, you know, to continue to foster that camaraderie and esprit de corps, but also make them meaningful. So whether it is a skills-based discussion or a discussion about new service areas that we've launched within the business and giving people a better grounding on what those capabilities are and how they can talk to them about clients, you know, I think we will continue to do that moving forward, and we've realized that that's really important, you know, that we create those opportunities for the whole company to get together.
Well, I want to say that as we first started talking, I was thinking, I wish I was taking notes, but then I remember John O'Dwyer is taking notes, and he's going to be writing up this summary for the newsletter, which will come out tomorrow or the next day. So
Great.
with that said, I want to thank you for spending some time with us today. And if you have any final points, we can add them. Otherwise, we'll wrap up.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this, these conversations that we've had over the last couple of weeks, and look forward to participating in more of your webinars.
Great. Thank you again. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.